And welcome to the City of Moose Jaw's Notorious Jawcast. I'm Craig Hemingway, Manager of Communications and Stakeholder Relations. And this is the city's official podcast. And we're glad to be joined by our City Manager, Maurice Carmichael, and Director of Operations, Bevan Harleton, to talk about the proposed new solid waste management facility for the City of Moose Jaw. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you for joining. Lots of questions about this, and most of which are answered on our website, which we'll get to in a moment. Maurice, I'll start with you. Of course, you started with the city just in May of 2023, and so all of this was really in terms of the planning for a new facility. Goes back years. But can you talk about your experience with this project?
Absolutely. So it is one of the important projects for the city and for this region, actually, because we've come at a time where the current landfill needs to be, it's coming to maximum capacity here over the next few years. And I was really pleased to see when I arrived at the city that we have the plans are ongoing for a new location, and that we have the new technology for this new solid waste management facility. And I'm calling it that because it is totally different than what you and I and all our residents have seen over the years driving on Highway 1 by the landfill. The follow-on, the next generation, will be very different. I think our residents will really understand after 100 years of existence. If you look at the technology from 100 years ago, it's quite different now in 2023. So the same goes for the landfill. It has changed. So for me, that's the exciting part, learning about how we can process all our waste in a different way. So that's the great part about this project.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just another dump, which again is what we're trying to certainly communicate. And Bevan, again, this project even predates to when you started with the City of Moose Jaw. There's been plans and an acknowledgement that the current landfill site needs to be closed very, very soon for many reasons. And so can you discuss maybe specifically just a few of those reasons why our current landfill is just completely running out of time?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Craig. So the primary driver there is largely that it's reaching capacity. We are running out of airspace, and anyone who's seen the location can attest that it's largely just a big pile of garbage. And so the big thing there is that we're out of room. So then as we approach the capacity, we start surveying it more and calculating our tonnages and monitor that very closely. So where we're at right now, we're predicting about March of 2027 we will be at that capacity, requiring us to have a new facility operational in 2026. A point of interest regarding the current location where our current landfill is, like a lot of other facilities in the province, there's an allowance to operate it now as it stands, but the Ministry of Environment has no interest in allowing municipalities to expand on facilities that are in that condition. So if there was a willingness to expand that location, it's been deemed as a contaminated site because it's been managing waste for 100 years. And it would be very difficult for the city to make any expansions on that site. I also can say that the available space there would not afford a good return on investment. So the pile of garbage that's enough, and moving it to the east or the west, it's a contaminated site. It's time to cap it and move on. And that's something that's really exciting about the future project, is that we will coordinate the closure of the current facility with that, put that relic away.
Before we get too much into the proposed new site, can you talk about the site selection process and why some of the other spots around Moose Jaw were not suitable for this? We've already talked about why the current site isn't, but some of the other ones, whether that's southeast or straight south or northeast, why those wouldn't have worked.
Sure. So the first thing that You'll note if you look at, or if you consider a map of the surrounding areas for Moose Jaw, is that we've got a municipal airport in the northeast, with a buffer zone around it, as well the federal air base to the south of the city. So both of those air bases or airports have got requirements, their own requirements for their own operations, and that means largely as far as landfills go, well, you can't have a lot of birds and pests and things that would impact their operations. So there's limiters right off the hop. And then I'll just briefly run through the technical criteria that went into the site selection: accessibility, proximity to farmsteads, schools, or community facilities, surface water, roadways, cemetery, railways, water pipelines, the existence of known water wells, any transmission lines or pipelines, and then the buffer for Moose Jaw Airport is an 8-kilometer buffer, and 15 Wing is 8 kilometers as well, with extensions to the prevailing winds. So we did an analysis of available locations in a 2-kilometer radius, and then a 5-kilometer radius, and then finally a 9-kilometer radius. And the location we finally landed on was one of our top choices.
Right, and that's about a kilometer north of the Moose Jaw city limits, on the west side of Highway 2. And Maurice, again, we made this public in the last couple of weeks as we record this on December 19th. And from your point of view, how pleased are you to see kind of the extensive engagement process we're going to undertake before the RM will decide on their discretionary use application?
That's a good point you're making, Craig. So right now we're in the entire process of having a new landfill for the city. The RM is part of it, because now that we've selected an area for the location, we have an agreement. It's not finalized yet, but we have an agreement with the seller of the land. Now it's up to the RM to look and for the discretionary use. Part of that process includes a lot of communication with different stakeholders, whether it's within the city, the RM, the different bodies, the regulatory bodies as well, because as I'm sure Bevan will expand on later on, we will have to abide by all the requirements for a facility like this one. So this location north of our city is close enough that, of course, because we'll have lots of people going back and forth between the new solid waste management facility in the city and our workers as well. So it's really always a balancing act between being close enough and being far enough so that we respect all the requirements.
Yeah, and you think of the proximity. It's a challenge to find that sweet spot, because operationally, Bevan, the added costs that would be incurred, the further we would go out, that's extra kilometers every day, that's more gas every day, and time, all adding up over years to hundreds of thousands or more dollars, let alone some other challenges. Correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So I guess I'd look at that from both sides, from city side, and our garbage collection trucks. Simple math: the further they have to drive, the more it will cost the city to run those routes. And then if you consider the location from rural use and from surrounding communities, that's a direct line to that facility without burdening through the city or taxing any of our roads that would run to different areas that the facility could be at. So it's a clean line between, serving surrounding communities as well, operational function.
There have been a lot of questions, a lot of good questions coming since the announcement was made about the proposed site. We do have fulsome answers on the city's website, moosejaw.ca/SWMP, which you can get to from the homepage of the city's website as well. But can you address, Bevan, even at a high level, just some of the concerns initially about dust, debris, leachate, and even the aesthetics of the facility?
Yeah, and Craig, that'll be the challenge for all of us administration included, is getting our head around that this, again, I like the word relic. This landfill that we're driving by on a daily basis, or that we're looking at, is not a representation whatsoever of the technology and the processes that we'll be putting forward. And in fact, through the Ministry of Environment's permit to construct, as well as the Ministry of Environment's permit to operate, will be beholden to. And just a note on that, like, this facility will be the newest, without having checked against other municipalities, I can tell you there are not new municipal landfills coming online in this province. So we have an opportunity to create a cutting edge facility in this province and to set the mark for solid waste management. The concerns that I've seen would be exactly what you would expect: litter, odor, dust, traffic. And most of those are addressed purely through our regulator and our need to operate the facility in a certain way. So each cell, which is where the solid waste is housed, is lined with plastic and includes a leachate collection system surrounding each site, each of these cells, and offers a distinct barrier between the operations of the solid waste cell and the surrounding ground around it. There's no interface there. At the end of every working day, we have to cover the garbage with dirt. So we're closing off that active face. Litter control, when it does occur, has to be maintained by the municipality as a part of our normal operations. In terms of traffic, yeah, there will be an increase there, and that's because a level of service is being provided from that facility. One of our regulators and one of the bodies we're going to have to work with is the Ministry of Highways, and we will make impact to that area, and we will address that as a part of our design and a part of our construction. The concept as it stands is in draft, and we don't want to complete that until we've completed the stakeholder engagement. So we're beholden to the RM's process, but it's also something that the city wants to get done. We want to get this information out to the public. We want people to see what this is going to look like. So that concept's got on a given 320 acre site, so a half section site, it includes a 100-meter buffer around that 320 acres, which is for trees and shrubs and for coverage and for wind protection. That's what it does. So 100 meters around a half section of land comes to 109 acres. So what the city's putting forward right now is a third of this land will be to offer a barrier, a visual barrier, and a windbreak to the facilities that are happening inside of that location. So that's a significant buffer. Is the length of a football field surrounding this entire site.
And of note, maybe one thing I could add, Craig, and to what Bevan was saying, we will not be allowed to be more than 10 meters in height. So when you consider this 100-meter buffer that will be around, it will barely be visible from, let's say, the highway. So it is, again, very different than the current landfill.
And Maurice, then, important again to note as we start to wind up here, that again, this is not a done deal. We've made there's an application that will go before the RM, and there's public engagement that is underway right now that's going to continue before RM will consider that application, correct?
Absolutely, and I invite everyone to come to we will have open houses in the new year, where we will show some of the plans, what it may look like, explain the technology, explain how we will manage the waste of the new facility. So for sure, please participate. It's important, and we want to hear your feedback.
Bevan, anything final from you?
We are looking at a 75 to 100 year investment here, and we are looking to serve the city, and we're looking to serve all of the surrounding communities. Waste management's a reality, and we're looking forward to taking that on head on.
Grace, anything before we go?
I think we have a great team at the city looking after our future and the growth and services for all our residents. So I'm excited to see this project come in the next 2 years, 2-3 years.
All right, thank you for your time. So to learn more about the proposed solid waste management facility for the city of Moose Jaw, go to moosejaw.ca /SWMP. Also a link right off the homepage of moosejaw.ca. We also have it on the home face of the free City of Moose Jaw app.